Enforcement Pirate Radio Network. Radio Free Larry presiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Radio Free Larry.
All right, here we go again. Buckle up, rough roads ahead. I'm rising up out of my horizontal bed position. I was working on the app while resting. I have some work to do out here. I'm putting I guess these called hairpin legs on a piece of finished wood to try to make a tabletop table. If you build a tabletop table, you have uh, a second tier, so it looks pretty cool. But I'm Velcroing and I'm not screwing it in right now just to see on this particular piece of wood how it would look. And I may not screw it in anyway. I just might leave the Velcro. Although I don't think I've tried it with hairpin legs, especially anything as much as this is, or as tall as these are. An interesting day out there. It's just so strange being in a normal residential community again, as normal as it gets, of course. I'm sure the people around it be the first ones to admit that they're not normal because there is no normal. Normal's over. Normal's passe. Doesn't exist. Because if you let them define normal, they'll be normal and everybody else will be considered crazy. So let me make sure I'm doing this right. Trying to live without AC is a little difficult. I guess I could open the thing over here and get some air in. I don't think it's all that hot outside. So I'm on my Bluetooth. It's like not the greatest quality, but I just want to get something usable. Because when you do the upstream, sometimes it ruins it. Ain't that cool out there either. But I'm not into I never used to live a life with AC, hardly at all. I was climatized all day out in like 89-degree weather. So I'm trying to get back to that. It's a little bit difficult with allergies, but again, I think it's kind of like self-defeating. If you don't go outside and climatize, then the allergies will affect you that much more. So the weather hasn't quite cooled. There is a concern. Again, I'm inside with a lot of different things and people. There is a concern that we're not going to here in Kansas that we might have a hotter or warmer winter than we did last year. Time will tell, but it's shaping up that way, is what we are saying as it. Which is not good because what you're going to find is if it stays too warm, which it shouldn't, it should get cool enough at least still at this point. Although if it gets too warm, your pollen will never go away. You'll have year-round outside allergies. Now, like everybody says, their allergies are year-round because there's indoor allergies. But indoor allergies, if you don't turn the heat way up, they're pretty much muted. So when you get that heat up above 70 degrees, it starts kicking in. 68 is like perfect to is like the limit for dust mites. They'll start kicking in around 68, 70. Now I gotta wonder if they like evolve. The cooler you keep it, the cooler they can survive. So if a lot of people, especially people that grew up in the city, you have an allergy to dust mites because you grew up in an area with cockroaches. Now, this day and age, I don't know as much. People never, I'm not gonna say I grew up around a million cockroaches, but we had, well, some of these cockroaches come around. Grew up in a ghetto there, but later on, they disappeared. When I was in Florida, believe it or not, I call Naples, Florida, the ghetto because it's ghetto. The mentality in Naples, Florida, these wealthy scumbags who are deep state types, who are the beasts, are ghetto. And I don't mean people know what things are ghetto. Like it's just not. It, it's insane, right? So they have all that money, but they live ghetto. Believe me. So when we were in Naples, my mother had this beautiful apartment near the water, and we're trying to figure out how to get rid of the bugs. Bugs, cockroaches. Florida has 7 varieties of cockroaches. So how did we do it? My mother put a new kitchen cabinets in. Person took them out. I guess sealed all the cracks, and they were gone. Although I know how to do it now, I didn't. I wasn't as astute back then. But living in extended stays and low rent apartments over the years, I all you have to do is buy the bait traps, and don't be every 6 months change your bait traps. That's it. You buy the combat bait traps, the large ones. You get less per package, but you have the capability to kill both small and large. If you see one, you'll be lucky. But as soon as that one shows up, that it's going to be gone. Because usually when you see it, it's already affected, and it's like, yeah, what's going on? It's freaking out. It doesn't know which way to go. It doesn't know how to. Like they say that the bait traps, they take it back to the den. I guess some could, but the ones I've seen, that you'll find them dead somewhere around your room once you see them. Now some probably go back, but I, when I live somewhere, I take care of the place actually. I mean, I don't think, I mean, exterminators probably hate me. I don't think they're really exterminating as well as they could because if they do it, then they only need to come back like what once every 6 months. Some do, but a lot of them, I think they fudge. Oh, if you pay this much money, we can bring in the special stuff. It's like cockroach extortion. But when I stay in a room, I clean up the whole area with my bait traps. And now there's a new one that works great. If you mix, I think they're both combat. There's a combat liquid one. Now that'll go pretty quick, right? But you do the dry one and the liquid one and mix them up. If you buy a full package, you could probably in an apartment get away with using half of each package. Right. Now here, I don't know how much trouble I'm going to have, but yeah, like a lot of people think, well, they have pest control. I don't have to do anything, right? Nah, get the bait traps, and then you never have a worry. They always come in and go, "Have you seen any bugs?" Yeah, one, but I have bait traps. Usually, within an hour or two, I find them dead somewhere. And what happens, like I'm saying, if you let them, they'll give you, if they're around, it can give you cockroach allergies. And that's where I think I developed it, because when they initially tested me, it was kind of like an antiquated system that everybody used uh, in Naples, Florida, back, like 15 years ago or something. Right. Only recently have they come up with other systems that might work better. and techniques. A guy up in Indianapolis had a lot of technique because he was cutting edge. His allergies were so bad up there. Right? There was a lot of money in it. So he came up with some techniques and found some additional, less allergies, but they existed. And again, if you get out into the environment, sometimes those allergies disappear because your body begins to acclimatize, right? And to the allergies also. But they said dust mites, and the lady said dust mites and cockroaches that's the only one she found. So in the old system, it even came up. That's the only like real bad allergy. So dust mites are everywhere, so it kind of like bogus, but they're related. So if you grew up in the ghetto or someplace that had bugs, you'll develop an allergy and had an allergy. When you're a kid, sometimes when you're younger you have the allergy, but it's not debilitating. Like my brother it was debilitating, it gave him asthma, but I never had any problems. That was only after they tried killing me for like 30 years that I developed allergies. There's a metaphysical side to it. And what does that do? It shifts your physical life. I never said metaphysics is disconnecting from a physical outcome. But a lot of faith healers kind of don't understand how that all works. So you actually have to use physical doctors. And again, a lot of people, I think, misunderstand that are LGBTQ what I'm speaking about. I always try to clarify it that I'm just speaking what happened on the planet, and nobody's doing anything different. So if I'm telling you that once upon a time there was no gay people, there wasn't. But that isn't here. And maybe there wasn't at the point, of the initial, right. So again, somebody's speaking about, so yeah, I don't deny evolution, but I deny that this is where the garden is. Do you understand that? I believe if you read the other books and you understand what they're saying, again, the Vatican has other books. Everybody has other books. That's anybody. They just don't tell you because they'll get killed if they tell you. 100%. And again, the Vatican has certain requirements. Why? I don't know. To maintain a certain organization, If you read the other books, Adam and Eve are not in the garden, and in reality fell to another place. And it's here. Now, I make the idea clear for everyone. I make it so they can understand. Maybe Lucy, like, remember that, that was Australopithecus, could have been Eve. So in her consciousness may have developed. And again, I'm just using that as an example. 100%. So what does that mean? This Adam and Eve were living, again, it's based upon what I tell you about what happened to me, where I was before I took a body. But again, it's also based upon what God told me, period. So Adam and Eve fell here and landed in a body. So the void. So the planet was spiritually void for a period of time. It was strictly physical. Then Adam and Eve fell to earth. This is how God has kind of rounded it out over the years, based upon my awakening and His instruction. And her instruction, if you believe it, that God is a woman, and of course the scriptures hold out that God is both and neither at the same time. So science and the Bible actually make a certain level of sense. It's just you have to understand science beyond just a knucklehead physical science, that there's a metaphysic behind it. But yet you can't be all spiritual either, because you have to understand that the physical is a representation of the metaphysical. So when you see the cosmos being created, And they go, well, see, it's not God. Well, that is God creating whatever it is there. And what God would tell you is, I'm not really necessarily creating, I'm changing things based upon creationary adulteration of my will. It's not God's will for a physical place to exist. Now, the garden was a spiritual physical place. I don't know if that would be some place God would want to exist based upon how it, quote unquote, fell. But it fell not based upon its own doing. It's kind of paradoxical, and that has to be hashed out to really understand that completely. So theoretically, Adam and Eve lived in a spiritual world, and then all that mess happened. Now remember, they were naked. So again, it's both sides of the coin, because what's happening is Christians are trying to play a game with Scripture, and it's already set based upon that all-knowing aspect. So if Christians are telling you that they were a man and a woman, heterosexual in the garden, they were also naked. So when we look at a pride, look at a pride parade or festival, they're naked, but they're gay. But Christians are dressed in clothes and they're heterosexual. But that's how God is. You see, neither side can really use that effectively based upon the truth. Unless the Christians all go naked. So naked church, I guess. Because you're not supposed to use that stuff all over you. 100%. Just let people be. So if you understand the scriptures on how it reverses the hierarchy, that which is last will be first, that which is first will be last, you'll understand that if the Bible tells you that Jesus or Paul are speaking solely of Christians, or you believe that that's what it is, or by the end of that Bible, the New Testament, it stops at a certain point and didn't expound. I mean, all the way through the Bible, it's expounding and it's increasing. And then finally, Jesus says, there's forgiveness, and that's it. Unless you cause these people to fall, which is what it was from the beginning. They were causing people to fall. No law system could have its people fall. It's a fallacy. Once you create a law system, everybody's law abiding. So again, it's a tool for spiritual beings such as myself over the eons, that once a fall enters in from the law system, they start condemning other people. The people in power that are condemning are actually the ones that are causing the others to fall. Right. So Jesus had some of that knowledge also, and delivered it back when. That's great stuff, Larry. So yesterday, my installation of my door latch system worked pretty good. In fact, I went to sleep after one bolt self-tapping screw went in, or not bolt, screw. Because I'm like, whoa, that's tight. Obviously, if they try hard enough, they can break in, but it'll make so much noise, and that's all I care. Give me a few seconds to wake up. But now there's a ton of those screws in there. I guess 4 of them. And when I leave, I'm going to use some 2-part epoxy. Because it was strange. It's a metal frame. I'm going to use 2-part epoxy and fill the channel, actually. I'll probably get you could even use what is that stuff called? liquid nails or something like that. Anything that's going to harden, right? That you can drill. Actually, I don't think you can drill into that. I'm not sure. I'll have to vote. But two-part epoxy you can drill into and everything. It'll actually, if they use that same spot, it will give them a mounting location inside. Thank you, Larry. So one of the last things I did in the church, as far as Bible study, and I didn't do too much Bible study in church, but although I joined this men's Bible study at Grace Fellowship in Cockeysville, Maryland, is we were speaking about Genesis and the creation and what does it really mean. I was next to this guy who's pretty cool. Hopefully he wasn't a deep stater, and it could have been all deep stater for all I knew. But we were he was talking about he was speaking about the void, because talk is cheap and we speak. He was speaking about the void, and he said, could that idea of the void have been the time when Earth was actually being created? Like, you've heard the word day used very differently over the days of our existence. So again, that's the concept that a day with the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years with the Lord is a day, which means it could be anything. So they had already realized that the term day could be anything. When I woke up and the church killed me at a certain level, God said, we're now moving on to this. No, we actually just did it. And when I went to study the Hinduism, it says a year or a day of Brahma is like, I don't know, 26,000 years or something like that. So there it is again. And again, all scripture is useful. I'm not asking you to change yourself at all. There's only so many ways that God can communicate with the planet. Thank you, bro. I thought there were legs on this thing. Where did the legs go? Oh no. The legs disappeared. Oh, here they are. So I thought it was neat because God had already instructed me in the Christian and Jewish side of it. And then I went to the Hinduism and it had further information to back up what God had instructed me. There's one sure thing that thing I speak to and that speaks to me is God. That's the most sure thing and probably the only sure thing. Velcro worked pretty good. I didn't put much either. I just put some small squares. If I had actually put a whole strip in there, it would have worked much better. Not much better, but it would be much heavier adhesion. But for now, I'm just getting the feel for this, the prototype, quote unquote. No, I'm like, it's going to slide off. It's like, oh, I have to put the legs. Not the legs. It has little pads that you put on. So again, the only thing I'm speaking about when I speak to LGBTQ people and finding God is for them to begin their own journey with God. I'm not asking them to do anything else. Just contact God and keep thinking about God and try to connect. But be careful. There's a lot of pitfalls in there, like devils that try to make you believe they're God. It's a personal thing. Just whatever God has for you, whatever God tells you to do. I already know that some people have to be gay their entire life. They have to be. Even by the will of others. Again, the whole thing is the will of others, but heterosexuality is the will of others. So again, they'll say, well, it was a man and a woman together. Right, that's okay. But what's the reality? They weren't sexual. We look at Jesus, he says the angels aren't sexual, so they're in the rapture, we won't be sexual. God has told me that sexuality will happen in the afterlife, but it's based upon, and there could be periods of no sex and then sexuality, but it's based upon what God's will was. It's kind of a mechanism that fixes things. God's will was for a certain thing to happen, and you will go through it. So you might be heterosexual but I can't tell you whether to be a man or a woman. I don't know exactly what happened. There is a possibility that they screwed that up, that you're a man born in a woman's body, a man born in the, even if you're not trans. Now, there is a sexuality inside, a connection. What happens is when they will something, or they say that person over there is gay, I can tell, some 6-year old kid playing with dolls, but yet the conservatives say that. And then what happens? They become gay. They become trans. Now, did somebody do that to you? Well, you could have been born gay very easily, just based upon that being on the planet. The more they want people to be gay, to speak ill of them, the more gay that will exist on the planet. So again, they're actually driving it. The people that say you shouldn't be gay are actually the ones causing people to be gay. Then Satan, on top of that, regardless of whether they will it or not, if they discriminate against you for something, Satan will create it or make it larger. Not create it, make it larger. So based upon them drawing focus to gay people as being quote unquote evil, it would just naturally increase on the planet because it's discrimination. That may be actually part of also, I mean, there's a lot of wills drawing Latino people here. But part of it is probably, they'll say, well, they're invading. But again, I can say they're invading all day and nothing would happen. They could say they're invading all day and then they would cause them to invade with their will. There'll be more of them that will come. So again, they can't think on how to fix things because they're part of that will that goes against that perfection, and that perfection also being God. So again, we could have fixed Central America a million times, but it's not politically expedient to the knuckleheads. Well, I'm moving forward again. Usually, I just wanted to or not necessarily usually, but I asked God. I said, God, just make sure I'm alive long enough to deliver the information. But it appears that we're moving forward. I received a lot of newer information that coexists with the previous information. Well, a part about the garden where they weren't actually heterosexual. They were asexual. And you know how you discriminate against asexual people. I think that sounds fine. Because it's the inside. What you're seeing when they go, well, I'm pansexual and I'm dansexual and I'm fansexual, whatever it is. And you're seeing the inside. They actually can see the inside and they're speaking about what's happened to their sexuality. But it's the will of others. Now, God created you, but what did he create? Your spirit. Even Adam and Eve was not this form of being with the soul inside. The soul's inside, then there's a spiritual being. We have a physical body. So we have a soul, a spirit, and a physical body, and the soul connects to the body via the spirit. And you don't have, because you're not just the spirit connected to the soul, there's a lot worse things happening to people here on this planet because they don't have as much connection and awareness of the soul. Soul, but also the spirit. So the soul is always different than your spirit, even though we call it a spirit soul. Sometimes it's easier to remember that. And that actually might have an implication of what point of creation it's in, outside of the original place, but not quite here, being a spirit soul. However, when you become a seer, when you start seeing, again, there are evil seers who aren't really seers. However, if you're a real seer, you can clean your spirit a little better. But what's the key with my life? I lived here 40 years from conception and was asleep. And they have a major execution going on in my life the entire time. So they got the jump on me. But the thing also being that Jesus only had this happen to him at the level it's happening to me for 3 years. I've had it happen for 30 years. So 3 years and Jesus was dead. I don't know how long Jonathan Luna had it happen to him. The U.S. attorney. We also have Assistant Director Dudley. No, it's not purely metaphysical. Not at all. Criminal spycraft. They used criminal spycraft against Jesus, but it also included witchcraft. Same, all spycraft today, as far as I can see it, is witchcraft. But it's also spycraft, which means it's physical effectuation of Satan's witchcraft. So they can wire your life for mental illness using spycraft, but Satan does it through spiritual means. So they combine that effort and their will. They have something done to them, and then they will it on you. It becomes a tool of evil. Whew. Got a lot of work to do still. Trying to make some, or craft, as they say, some curtain rod brackets. I actually purchased urban industrial pipe looking things for the brackets, but the pole I want to use some you just go get a 1 1/4 inch dowel, hardwood dowel. Usually poplar is cool. And then you have a curtain rod that's cheaper than what they would charge you. If you want fluting, then it's more, of course, it doesn't have fluting. But what I'm doing, I'm going for a rustic look. So I want to, you can actually go to the store and sometimes find the dark poplar wood in a dowel, and then you don't have to worry about antiquing it. But I bought antique wax. So I'm going to use the antique brown wax over top of it, and it'll give it that kind of rustic appearance, aged antique appearance. And then I'm going to lay it over those pipe things. Voila. Urban industrial. Well, what happened is, if you have one of the smaller apartments here, the air conditioner units are not outside your window. And I think over there, are they smaller apartments? I can't remember if they're small. Yeah, smaller on the end. Right. If you have a bigger 1 bedroom apartment, they have air conditioning units outside your window in your bedroom. Now it's very quiet. It's like white noise. But then again, I won't be recording in here. And I'm going to first try some curtains to see if it cuts it back. If it cuts it back, then I'll go with foam, and I'll lay foam in that window. It lets light in, but it's not like anybody can actually see that window all that much. They got some bushes to hide the AC units, the heat pumps. So I'm working on that. Yeah, I knew I wanted a 2 bedroom. They didn't get, my money didn't come, and therefore it doesn't work. 100%. They're trying to speak through me, but I listen and I speak, and I'm not embarrassed to be a spiritual being that's being killed on the planet, although they should be embarrassed for killing a spiritual being. First, they attack asleep people, which is absolutely horrific. 100%. As most of the people that I heal. But then they're also getting in the channels of the seers and killing the vision and killing the seer. Because they don't need vision for what they do. It's all physical murder in reality. Physical extortion, theft, murder, but it's also metaphysical. Well, Satan pays them back. So what happened is, when they broke into either my apartment or my storage unit to put that microphone in there, and you're not going to fool me, I pulled those shelves out. I even looked up under the top on the kitchen carts, and they weren't there. So I know it wasn't in my kitchen cart. So wherever they broke in, what that does is that empowers Satan on the planet, and Satan will empower them. The physical action brings metaphysical witchcraft anti-power to their lives. So last night I was out of my room and walked into the kitchen, was trying to grab something out of the sink, and I was getting blips to take the Ninja blender blade and put it in the blender, but you can't get to it while they're blocking you. What they'll tell you is you didn't listen to your cue, but you can't listen. Hearing the cue has nothing to do with effectuating the cue. You'll effectuate what cues you can, and the ones you can't are blocked. So their bullshit is bullshit again. That's one of the Satan scams. Oh, you had the thought, but you didn't act on it, but you can't. Every thought that you can act on is a real Q. The other ones are an FQ. So it sliced me pretty good, but it's healed already. Again, the metaphysical work over the last 12 hours or so is allowing that to heal. The first couple hours were really, really bad. I mean, I wasn't like on the ground going, "Ah!" but they might be. Once God gets some of them. So that was a pretty bad one. And I, all day, like for a week, again, I'm getting the idea you got to get uh, Neosporin. Couldn't get it. So again, when your daughters go with a guy, and maybe you bless the relationship when they should have been with the other guy, you just didn't like that other guy, and your daughter gets killed or gets addicted to drugs or catches HIV or whatever it is, same thing. So again, you shouldn't allow it in anyone's life, and then it won't happen in your kids' lives. Am I blocking your kids from having relationships? Well, God has to dole out the punishment. My idea to God, my information to God is just take them from the planet. My information is just to kill you and take you all from the planet, so that the other people can live a peaceful life or a somewhat peaceful life until we destroy the planet. I mean, I don't play around. When I come to the planet, it's either shit or get. Now, Jesus tried how many ages ago? Buddha tried. God doesn't have a trouble with Buddha, but God likes to be included. So eventually, he was hoping Buddhists would accept something, whether it was the Torah, and it did. It happened places. I mean, China, you got Chinese Jews, accepted the Torah. So again, accepting Christ means different things to different people. I believe Jesus knew he wasn't God. I believe Jesus knew he was fallen on this planet because why? Because that's what happens here, just at differing lengths. So he's carrying the Son of God power, but he also effectuated with power. But it took him down. Again, it's a sin to overturn the temple. But if the will of the others are for Jesus to fall and overturn the temple and the marketplace in the temple, then it's not his fault. He's sinless. So again, Satan's trick that I was speaking about earlier. Again, nothing against gay people, but if you become gay and it's God says you're not supposed to be gay, and at this point, I don't think God says that. It's just like Jesus coming and saying he didn't come to tear down the law, but he's going to bring truth to it. And again, I'm part of that effort to bring truth to it. I'm actually the angel of law and justice. Which means if you're gay and they made you gay, why is God mad at you? No, God didn't make you gay or heterosexual. Remember that. So there's something independent going on the planet. Okay, if you go to the Hare Krishna interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and all of that, you'll find that God is not micromanaging until there's a problem. And it's still not traditional micromanaging. So God has nothing to do with this planet. But when God receives garbled messages back and nothing's making sense, and God sends angels to earth, and next thing you know, they're in a body and they're being tortured and they're fully asleep, then there's an issue. So what did God do? God came into the existence. Now, God can't come into the existence in the original form, but God's spirit enters the existence and never takes part in the existence in reality. I guess it's kind of like Joseph Smith's vision. He was in the vision. Kind of a paradox. And Joseph Smith being LDS has some interesting stuff. I'm not LDS. I don't believe it or not believe it. It's just not. I've already learned a lot of what they say before I ever looked at even anything they were. And I learned that from God directly. So Joseph Smith was in a vision. God comes into the planets and tries to interact, and he's actually, or she, or it is in a vision. So the major part of my waking up was God wanted to see if I would recognize God in whatever form God came. So God would come as a mist. God would come speaking to me in my mind as a little boy, a little girl, an older woman, an alien. So it's pretty funny. As God would just take his presence and then speak to me. Sometimes I see a vision. Sometimes I just hear a voice. And so, I'd say, and God said, you see me in all my forms. So again, that was one of the keys to the work, to understand where God is and who God is. Instead of worshiping something on earth, and worshiping a nation, a piece of ground, dirt, another person, that kind of thing. Tricho, Chango, three-card monte, the shell game. That's what goes on in religion here. Government also. So again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you being gay. It's just simply this idea that because you've been so harmed by it and you're on Earth, in other words, when you leave Earth, you'll understand all of it, whether you stay gay or not, whether you're a man or a woman or a woman or a man, reversed or the same as you were here. I believe there's people on the planet that are two beings in one. I believe people that are successfully asexual are possibly two spiritual beings in one body. And I think there is some like hieroglyphic evidence of that thought or something like that. So instead of trying to find their soulmate, they live in the same body with their soulmate. And they have access to each other. Or possibly they're separated on the planet, but they have access and have had access to each other their entire life in some way, shape, or form. Now, what happens is there's like groups of people. Hope I didn't get too loud there, but there's groups of people. And, it's like an angelic group or something, you would say. They're here on the planet. So if you've had connection with people in other places, spiritual places, and you're on this planet, you'll feel love for that person. But Earth might turn that into sexual. So again, the sexuality also is having some crazy stuff just kind of naturally almost. Because the way Earth presents love, or this planet, I don't even believe this is, I believe we fell further than Earth. I'm sure they're trying to block a thought. I almost got to it. I can't get to it. It was an extension of that, and it was like a little bit more genius, a little bit more descriptive. But we get back to the idea where Jesus speaks about the little ones. We're speaking about humble Christians. I've been a humble spiritual person when I can purify and be in that space. Again, they try to tell me, well, don't let them steal your peace. The only reason you're saying that is because you don't like a more powerful being destroying your world for running around stealing people's peace. There's people on this planet that are really fake. They're part of the deep state and the beast, but they go around looking peaceful and speaking about being peaceful. It's all bullshit because they're the ones that steal the peace. Again, we see that in all sorts of scriptures. I'm actually more intelligent than Feuerstein. But again, he's part of the system. I'm not telling you he's evil. I never felt that he was evil, but maybe he doesn't know how to live outside of the system. A lot of them can't live a hectic life, a cursed life. So they give in right away. But my life has fallen far enough where it doesn't matter that I never had a life that was uncursed. Because their idea is, well, you lived a cursed life. You know how to do that. My life is biblical. I don't care what they say. But we're at a higher level of greatness and a higher level of evil at the same time. I am engaged. I don't know about all of you, but I am engaged in greater works. That makes me greater than Jesus. But what does that mean? Does it mean anything? Not really. But what it means is that as the planet becomes more evil, God introduces more grace based upon what that grace needs to be. So instead of just overturning the temple, we're now overturning the planet. And eventually that will lead to the end of the planet. So what happens is everybody's afraid of death. Most people are afraid of death. Most people that are not afraid of death are more afraid of something else. Or maybe not looking brave or whatever it is. So they use that. But the idea is this, and the Hare Krishnas do a great job of trying to paint that picture. Sai Baba of Shirdi, he did a great job of trying to paint that picture. It's great because Sai Baba of Shirdi is on his deathbed, and he gave that's a certain level of grace, going through a dissertation while you're dying and have other people witness things and all that. Hare Krishnas have a lot of information about people dying. They have a system, and again, their system isn't totally honest, but their system allows a person to die kind of with grace. There's some crazy stuff in their organization, but what it does is they have people that will take care of you. I was part of the beginning of that, and then they kind of stole it away from us. They tried to kill me. We were trying to create actual units of people that were to be with people while they were dying. Again, a sort of hospice system, uh, but more personal, more religious oriented. Some of their bigger people, when they die, their their disciples or the people that respected them in life will be there, and they'll play the music, and you'll have people that are dying that'll be half here. Now when I say it, it just happened to me. See, God blesses me. Because I'm half here and I'm half in Galoka. Galoka just appeared. Oh, there's what's her name waving to me. I guess they're sitting in Galoka and they see me walking around in my shorts. So again, they're explaining the process of death. And they're dying, and they're like, oh, I can see it. And the Christians the same thing. That, if you so again, when we become selfish, we lose some of that ability to interact with the elderly as they pass in a manner. Even it's kind of callous, but even if you think they're crazier than a loon, if you're there at death, I was there at death with my stepfather, but he was already, it was hospice and he was asleep and snoring pretty deep, and I'm standing there and I forget all of the thought I had. I recorded some of it before, I think, or I may have just spoken to the existence. But at a certain point, there's my father spiritually outside his body, outside the hospice, walking up to the hospice. He's like out of body experience, astrally projected. And when he comes back in. I can't remember if he at that point got into his body or not, but he was like, my mom, shortly after my mother comes to relieve me, and he expires within an hour or something, or a couple hours. So when he returned to his body, whatever business he had was finished. And again, my stepfather was horrible to me. There's not somebody I'm like, I don't hate, but it's not somebody that was at all nice to me. In fact, when he was nice to me, the whole goal was to manipulate me into believing anything he does wrong to me. Again, Deep State does the same thing. So he may have been indoctrinated into that. But anything that he does wrong is my fault. Again, Marshal Service, FBI, CIA, that's what they do. And again, when I say those entities, they're responsible for taking care of those issues, and they've become the issue. But in there is cartels, in there are narcotics distributors, sex traffickers. They're all the same ilk anymore. So again, would there be anybody greater after me um, in a physical body? Probably not. Again, that's the signification of the end of the planet. And God will not strive to be with man forever. Does that strike you as a strange statement to be where it is in the Bible? It speaks about the length of man's life, or a woman's life, human's life. They'll have so many years and then they'll pass. But from the first day I read that, it didn't make sense. Again, because I'm with God and God's tapping me on the shoulder while I'm asleep, and I can't hear him. But eventually, the idea is this: God has said numerous times through my awakened life, probably through the rest of my life also. But as far as me having present body awareness over the last 20 years or so, that God will not strive to be with man forever. And that's what's happening on this planet. God is most likely ending it. The lifespan of humankind is over, but you're not humankind. You're a spirit. You're a soul, actually. Again, the idea of dying. Well, why do I want to embrace that thought? It's not comfortable, but it's a reality. So I spoke before when I was reading from Paul. I didn't know it was Paul. God said, I'm saying this. This is me. The scripture you're reading right now is me. And of course, Christians condemned it for a while when I brought it up. But then, isn't all scripture God? Correct. Well, the idea is in Deuteronomy. What was God angry at? God's like a child. But it's the most intelligent thing on earth to be that child. Because what you're doing is you're living a place that's hellish. And you have to quote unquote, grow up into being a citizen of hell. So remember, Jesus speaks about the little ones. That's the real constitutional position of creation. But when you read that, I didn't finish the thought. I was speaking about it earlier. When you read that, that which is last will be first. That which is first will be last. So if you, as a Christian, want that to apply to you, it has to apply to the person that is last, that has not found God, that is not understanding of Scripture, that is spiritually asleep, that is spiritually blind. So again, that which is last will be first, that which was first will be last. Anytime it tells you that you're the chosen one, you should understand that you should see the victimization of others that do not know God. And realize they are beyond your chosen status. They are those that are victimized while you had the advantage of being chosen. Well, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do.